All right. Well, welcome everyone to the National Diabetes Program, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. My name is Noah. I am a dietitian and one of your co-hosts, along with Ann Perryman, who's of course on screen. We are so glad that you're able to join us today. We would love it if you could introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're from, especially if this is your first time joining or if you're generally just new here. Maybe also let us know how much snow is on the ground where you are. I know a lot of the country got hit with the pretty massive winter storm over the weekend. So on these Tuesday programs, repeat attendees will know that we talk about a vegan diet for diabetes and how you can use food to reduce your medications and manage and possibly even reverse type 2 diabetes. So we have a great guest speaker with us today, someone who helps many individuals do just like that. You won't have to wait very long. Annie Ersley is here. She'll be joining us in just a moment to share about her inspiring success stories that she gets to facilitate from the clinician side. We want to hear your questions as we go through today's content. Please let us know if anything stands out to you that you're curious about, or if you just have questions about food or nutrition generally. Those can be dropped in the chat where we have several of our crack team of dietitians ready to answer those questions. And we would also, of course, welcome if you wanted to come off mute and ask those live as well. Before we get any further, I just want to say hello to Linda, calling in from Ohio. I'm seeing 9.5 inches of snow. I'm curious if any other locations are going to top that. Melissa from Maryland, 7 inches. That is solid. We've got, let's see, Cheryl in Detroit. Lots of snow, 14 degrees. Ooh, wind chill of 1. Stay warm, Cheryl. Joan, yes, stay warm in the DC area. I was out this morning and it was a little chilly. And hello, Ellen from Missouri. Boy, I'm loving all of the introductions in the chat, so keep those coming. All right. One of the mainstays of this program is always kicking things off with a discussion about the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes. So we're going to jump into that review now. Hopefully, this is starting to look familiar to some of you. Basically, type 2 diabetes is kind of, if we had to summarize it, the inability to control your blood glucose. So if you see here, this is a representation of a blood vessel. These are the little tubes that carry all sorts of important nutrients and oxygen to the different parts of your body. It's a mixture of blood, which consists of red and white blood cells, plasma, but also it's this sort of baseline amount of glucose. So your body uses glucose, shuttles it around a variety of ways. But when we eat a meal, say something like a sandwich, we go from this sort of before to a higher level of glucose in our blood vessels. That sandwich would get digested and absorbed through your stomach and intestine, and we see this natural rise in blood glucose. And this is perfectly okay. We like to see, and our bodies naturally have this increase in blood glucose when we eat a meal. And our body responds by releasing this thing called insulin, which helps bring that glucose back down to normal levels. So we want to take a closer look at how this actually happens. Now that glucose, it doesn't just stay in your blood, it gets taken up by either muscle or liver cells for energy use or for storage. So when we have that meal, we start to see our glucose levels rise. But glucose doesn't naturally get itself into these muscle or liver cells. Our body needs the insulin that I mentioned to bring those levels down and help our muscles and liver cells utilize the energy in the glucose. So insulin comes along, it plugs into this receptor, and a special channel opens up, allowing glucose to flow into those cells where it can be utilized. Now, unfortunately, the American diet that many people in this country and what we call just an unhealthy diet in any other part of the world consists of a lot of fat, specifically saturated fat. And that saturated fat specifically and mostly comes from animal sources. So when you eat a diet that is high in cheese, in red meat, in butter, some of these other high fat sources, we see a slow but steady accumulation of stored fat inside of those muscle and liver cells. Now, this is a problem because when the insulin comes along, that fat blocks the pathway that allows the channel to open up, and we see that glucose unable to enter the muscle or liver cell like it's supposed to. Now, this might be bad news, and in many cases, a doctor will tell someone with diabetes who's experiencing this that, hey, you've just got to not eat carbohydrates or maybe drastically reduce the amount of carbohydrates that you eat. We think there's a better way. And this way is a really delicious way. It includes eating a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, delicious food that really satisfies your taste buds, but also does amazing things for your body. So, on a plant-based diet, a vegan diet that is low in fat, we're actually able to slowly but steadily reverse that process, remove the fat from your muscle and liver cells, and allow insulin to have its effect once again. So, this is what we're trying to get at with this class, trying to teach you the science, but also give you the practical tips and support to allow you to succeed in reversing and overcoming your diabetes. And we're so glad that you're here and embarking on this journey with us. So, with that, I will turn it over to Em to introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you, Noah, for the intro. And first, I want to point out we did have someone top the 10 inches of snow. Holly in Connecticut got 15. I had to point that out. And it looks like, yeah, some other parts of New York got a lot as well. So I just wanted to point that out. But also, before I introduce Annie, I did want to read off what I think is a really important question that Yvonne asked. She said a friend told her you must have a diabetes gene to get diabetes. So she's wondering, is there a genetic component to diabetes? And our registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, Anna, said there's a small genetic component to diabetes, but what we're finding is that it's more driven by lifestyle. So many people who share genes, with passed down recipes and eating habits and other lifestyle factors. So, and this is good news because then we can really we have a lot more power in how we're going to direct our health. So I just wanted to point that out because it's so empowering that we have control over what we're eating and how active we are and other lifestyle factors. So Yvonne, thank you for your question. And yeah, keep those coming in. We'll get to some shortly, but I just want to let um, introduce Annie because she might be able to also help us with some questions. Annie is a registered dietitian and she's also a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She loves, she's so passionate about what she does. She loves sharing with others how they can improve their health. And she's also a Food for Life instructor. So she's out in the community showing how delicious and nutritious plant-based foods can be. So Annie, thank you so much for being here and I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Em, and thanks everybody for including me in this wonderful group today. I'm excited to share just a little bit of, some of the successes that our programs have had here in Mendocino County. We're here in Northern California. We're a rural area, but we get to do really big things in this small rural area. So I have the opportunity to work in 3 hospitals and a lot of our surrounding clinics here in Mendocino County. And one program here in Ukiah that's been in place for a couple decades now is a boots on the ground program that consists of classes, community outreach, and one-on-one visits with our participants. And the exciting news, we just compiled all of our data from 2024. We're still working on the last year, but 2024 and our overall reduction in A1C was close to 2%. So our group of over 400 participants overall dropped A1C 1.8%. So, what does that mean? Not all of us are numbers people, but when we look at diabetes management medications, if a medication hit a 1.8% reduction in A1C, the pharmaceutical industry would be jumping up and down in excitement. And I will say many of our patients are on medications in addition to the lifestyle pieces that we introduce and promote in our programs. But these are mainly patients with type 2 diabetes, many of whom have been able to start to reverse that disease process and decrease or eliminate medications, which has been really, really exciting. And weight management as well. I'm sure many of you that are participating in the National Diabetes Program are also trying to manage weight. And overall, our patients through the course of the program lost about 14 pounds. So, great success. And so the question is, well, how did they do it? What were the components of your program? And I think one of the most important pieces is the group dynamic, which is why whether it's a group meeting like this one or meeting in person and learning together, eating together, sharing together is so important. And that's why I'm so passionate about Food for Life, because it allows us to do just that, and incorporates food into the equation. So as Noah just said so beautifully, we know that what we eat each and every day has a tremendous impact on what's going to happen with our diabetes on that day and the following days. And so I'd like to encourage everybody to feel empowered by that, where, if we've had a misstep at one meal, one day, one week, just know that as soon as you start shifting that back around and bring the fruits, veggies, whole grains, and beans back on the plate, almost immediately your cells are able to respond more efficiently to insulin, and blood sugars become better balanced. You start feeling better, energy levels better, etc. So I'm saying that because with this being the start to a new year, a lot of people having a lot of different feelings and emotions these days with a lot of what's happening here in the nation. If we focus on what we can control, especially surrounding our health, oh my gosh, that's empowering. So we are in control of what's on our plate, of what goes into our mouth. And I hear that today we'll be talking about kind of maintaining that, that control while we're traveling. And I'm excited to get in the mix and chat about that, because that shouldn't be seen as a challenge, but a fun opportunity to be creative and to figure out, whether it's looking at a menu or dining at a restaurant and figuring out, ooh, okay, how can I shift this to a plant-based meal, or how can I veganize this option that otherwise would be more aligned with the standard American diet. So excited to talk more about that. But I wanted to touch really briefly on a concept that's helped a lot of our patients here in Mendocino County, which is habit stacking. So one of our younger dietitians had stumbled across an article about habit stacking. This was over a year ago, and she started introducing it to her patients. And so the idea is, pick something that you're already doing routinely. A lot of people are coffee or tea drinkers in the morning, and that's just routine. Even if they're half asleep, they're stumbling into the kitchen, prepping their coffee or tea, sipping on it, part of the morning routine. They don't have to remind themselves to do it. No sticky note to grab the cup of coffee. So we want to pick one of those habits that's already just rote, just part of your routine, and then stack another healthy habit on top of it. So say one of your goals is, I want to eat beans every day. I talked to a dietitian. They told me all the beautiful things about eating beans every day. So how do I bring those in? So maybe it's simply putting the can of beans next to your coffee maker, a reminder to open them and get them in the fridge, or put them in a dish in your lunchbox, take them with you. Or maybe it's having fun exploring some of the convenience bean-based options, which we can talk about for traveling. Or maybe it's medications. We know lifestyle is, I would say, the most important part of diabetes management, but for many of you, medications may be in the mix as well. So it may be putting the medications near where you prep your coffee and tea to make sure that you're consistent in that regard. I'll share one last story, but I know I want to leave some time for questions and answers. But I had a patient that took this concept of habit stacking, and when she followed up with me, she's like, Annie, I'm so excited. I did the habit stacking. And so I asked her what she did, and she goes, potty squats. And I'm like, tell me more. And so every time that she used the restroom, whether at home or out and about, she'd put the seat down after she had finished her duties. And then she started with just 10 squats where she would squat in the bathroom 10 times. And then she got up to where she was able to do upwards of 50 squats every time she used the restroom and gained strength, got her heart rate up several times during the day because we all have to use the bathroom during the day. And she just was so excited to share that. And so we've been spreading the word about not just habit stacking, but the potty squats ever since. Uh, so just wanted to share that where anything that you're doing routinely throughout the day, it can be an easy add-on to pick a healthy habit and stack it up together. So that's all I've got for now. I'd love to hear from everybody if people have questions, comments.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I love the potty squats. So many good ideas. And I'm curious, yeah, if anyone wants to put in the chat or tell us, tell Annie, ask questions. But if you've done habit stacking starting this year or prior years, it's always nice to see what other folks are doing to get inspiration, just like the squats. So yeah, feel free. I see Lily has her hand up. Yes, go ahead, Lily.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't realize that that's what it was called. I've been starting to do some things like that. I take out certain things and just put them in front on the counter, like I want to use this tomorrow, or I'm going to do this tomorrow. But also, my exercise habit stacking has been every morning I do what I can on military push-ups, and whatever I do on military push-ups, then I follow it up with regular push-ups. So I started with 5 of each. I'm up to 10. And then I do some crunches and some mountain climbers just
Lily,
to get myself in the morning. And I do it every morning. If I don't do it in the morning, I'm like, oh, I forgot my exercises. So I didn't thank you for giving it a name.
Absolutely. No, and thank the researchers at Stanford. They did all the hard work and coined that term. But I love it, Lily. So you've already started incorporating some habit stacking through activity. And I'm guessing you feel pretty amazing every time after. Yes, yeah, show those guns. Yeah, it feels great. It feels great. And so having those things that become a habit, we actually kind of get hooked on in a positive way. You feel great after doing them, and before you know it, you don't have to think about doing it. You want to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lily. And yeah, thank you, Annie. And anyone else, I see Jill in the chat put that she's been working on habit stacking with adding beans to every lunch and dinner. So yes, beans, we all here love beans. So that's great. A great way to, to get more fiber in and other nutrients. So let's see. Annie, were there any, I'm curious if you've had any new habits you're trying to develop that you've been successful with the habit stacking, and then we'll wait for others to also chime in.
Absolutely. Mine is, we have a blended family that's all going different directions every day. So I had to incorporate a scheduling piece into our morning routine. So now when we're all kind of doing our mad dash for breakfast, it's a quick pause and we talk about everybody's schedule for the day. And believe it or not, that may not sound super wellness oriented, but that has decreased all of our stress every single day, just knowing who's going where and kind of what the plan of the day is going to be.
No, that's huge. Yeah, we talk about here a lot, and I'm sure you do with your patients, clients, community members, planning, and we'll talk about that with traveling because it's so
traveling. That's huge.
Ahead and yeah, just to know what you're going to do before you get to your destination. That way, it really can reduce the stress. So yeah, that sounds like a great thing to habit stack. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we're seeing. Anna says she's been habit stacking by making overnight oats the night before at the same time that she preps tea for the next morning. That's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious, Annie, because it seems like there's a lot of interest in the chat about habit stacking. I know I'm familiar with Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. He has a nice resource. I'm curious if you have any books or resources that other folks might be curious to check out more, just if they want to learn a little more of the ins and outs of habit stacking.
Yeah, that's the primary, to my knowledge, it was, I think, Professor Fogg that, yeah, that kind of coined the term. And then funny enough, I think one of his primary habits is he doesn't do potty squats, but he does potty push-ups only when he's at home. He doesn't do the push-ups out and about. But um, yeah, that was one of his. But there's also Atomic Habits. I don't know if anybody's heard of that book. It's gained some attention recently, but it's been around a while. That can be a good, relatively quick read for anybody who's interested in, yeah, those tips and tricks for just, making things more automatic and building upon the habits that you already have in existence.
Yeah, thank you, Annie, for sharing those. And I see in the chat, yeah, again, a lot of love for the habit stacking. So I'm curious before, well, we can end with the habit stacking for now, but just do you have a top tip or two for any habits you have in place or special strategies when you're traveling? And I love what you said in your talk earlier that, it should be an opportunity for fun, not additional stress. So I think that's really important to point out. So yeah, we'd love to hear if you have any top tips.
Absolutely. So one thing that we recommend and actually write prescriptions for our patients is a cup of beans or more a day. And that's anything in the bean world. It can be beans, lentils, yeah, any of our legume friends. And then when people are traveling, that tends to be the first thing that, oh, well, I was traveling, it was the holidays, I stopped eating my beans. So we've been encouraging people to have fun looking at different convenience items. And there's a lot out there. A lot of these meal pouches are readily available at all grocery stores. You don't have to go to, any fancy grocery store or Whole Food store. But everything from curry packets, lentil curry, chickpea curry, made by Tasty Bite is one of the common brands. I don't know if we're supposed to talk brands, but there's that wide variety of options available. And then there's a lot of different companies that now make, instead of just canned beans, they're actually beans in just kind of a tetraseal, if that's what it's termed, but just a pouch where you can easily throw it in your suitcase, your purse, even carry it with you to go. And then, of course, hummus cups. There's a lot of hummus options that are shelf stable now that you can take with you. So you can have, hummus and crackers, hummus and veggies when you're traveling as well. But I have to say my favorite is, kind of the pre-made pouch meals. All you have to do is, heat it, open it, eat it. You can eat it as is. Of course, it's more palatable if you heat them first. But that's been a really fun one. One other little tip and trick I'll share with people, if you are able to set aside just a little bit of time before you're going to hit the road, is doing a power muffin or a power bar, making it at home. Of course, you can purchase those as well, but that can be a fun way to, believe it or not, incorporate beans. So chickpea blondies are one of my favorites, black bean brownies, but they sound like dessert items, but even with diabetes management, these can be great little snacks that also incorporate beans.
Yeah, thank you so much, Annie. I love the focus on beans. Like you said, sometimes they're the first forgotten thing when we're traveling or, tight on time. And I did see someone in the chat, so I didn't want to get distracted and scroll too much, but she said that, making cookies with chickpeas and other, very fiber rich. Yeah, so definitely making those treats with beans is great. And yeah, we'll be discussing some nice snack ideas that help you keep the legumes in the mix. So yeah, thank you so much, Annie. And yeah, we'll just get on to our presentation part, but we'd love if anything else comes up, if you'd like to chime in, that sounds great.
Wonderful. Thanks, Em.
Thank you. So let me just share my screen. Some of you might be familiar. This is our class worksheet. So you can either print it off if you did beforehand and write along, or open a second browser and just fill it in as we go, or just take a glance later. So optional for what you think is best for you. All right, so we're going to do a little check-in. So based on last week, our goal was to look at a menu and find some vegan and low-fat options. So we're curious if, even if you didn't attend last class, if you were able to take a look at a menu of a place you really like. And if you found anything maybe new or just thought of some usuals that you could have next time you go to this restaurant, we'd love to hear in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand in Zoom, and we'd love to hear live. And we can let you think on it a little bit as well. I do see Jill said they've put the vegan black bean soup back on the menu at Panera. That sounds great, because especially in this colder weather that many of us are experiencing, that's always nice to have a very fiber-rich, comforting meal when you're out. I'm seeing Yvonne says at an Asian restaurant, steamed veggies, great. That's a really nice option. But yeah, we can come back to this as well. So keep those coming in the chat. We'll make sure we take a little time later to read those. All right, so as we were mentioning, planning is crucial. So number one, know where you are going, which most of us do when we have a trip in mind, but it's helpful to kind of plan your route. And how many meals need special planning? So we'll get into a little more of the specifics there. And as we were talking about, some snacks and meals that are nice to have on hand when you're traveling. So stay prepared with those. Step two, you want to assess food options. So where your destination is, or maybe along the way, depending on how you're traveling, will there be grocery stores that you can access some items? Will there be restaurants? Last week we looked at Happy Cow app, and there's some other apps, and just good old Google vegan restaurants in such and such town that you're going to. So you can use those resources to find more vegan friendly restaurants. Step three, then when you find some of those veg friendly restaurants, make a list of them, and it can be really helpful. A lot of places online have a menu, so you can look ahead of time, and that way it really reduces the stress and decision fatigue when you do go. It can be a little more chaotic once you're there, so just taking a few minutes before you go can be really helpful. And then it can be really helpful also to plan out non-restaurant meals. So many of us might want to, cook if there's a kitchenette at the hotel, or if you're staying in an Airbnb or a family member's house. So you would just want to think, will you have access to a kitchen? Will that kitchen have a fridge, a microwave, hot water? And we do know that most of us know that cooking yourself can save money, and a lot of times it can lead to much less temptations and compromises in terms of how we're trying to stay on track with our health goals. And then, as always, it's helpful to write things down. So planning ahead and writing your plan down can be really helpful, or putting it in your phone. That way it's easy to access. All right, so before I go any further, I just want to see if a couple of people wrote in some other ideas that they've had. Veggie sushi, that was really good from a grocery store. So that could even be something, you're on the road and you're going to stop at the store for a few staple items, or maybe you're close to your destination and picking up some fruits and veggies. Maybe there's a veggie sushi option there. Thank you for sharing that. Holly says she ordered a baked potato with steamed broccoli at Cracker Barrel recently. Awesome. That's great. Let's see. Elizabeth said she got steamed tofu and a veggie curry instead of meat options on the menu. Awesome, Elizabeth. That sounds really tasty. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, so keep those coming in. So now we know there's various types of travel. We have by car, by train, by plane. Maybe some of us travel by foot or bike. But we are curious to hear, what are some of your favorite staple items to pack when traveling? I know Annie shared a lot of great ones that featured legumes. So we would love if you share in the chat, or if you do want to share live, we would love to hear, what things work really well for you when you're traveling. I see potatoes, that's a great one. Oatmeal, and then Jill says she uses the hotel coffee maker to make it in the morning. I love that. Philip says fresh fruit when traveling. Excellent. Patrick says bagels, whole wheat if I can find or make them. Awesome. Anna says dried mangoes and the Go Macro cherry flavor bar. Awesome. And then it helps to have some good music while you're in the car or elsewhere. Wilma says roasted chickpeas. Great. Yeah, we'll be talking about the chickpeas a bit more. We have a nice recipe for those. That's awesome, Wilma. Yeah, keep those coming in. It's nice to really get a lot of great ideas. And with that, though, I'll pass it over to Noah. We're going to do a fun cooler activity.
Great. Well, thank you, Em. Yeah, so I brought along a visual today. So hopefully some of you have these sorts of things, big coolers. Today's talk is not, as it might seem, sponsored by anyone, including Igloo. But that doesn't stop us from talking about what you can do with a cooler. These are incredibly handy tools for road trips. If you're able to keep things just a little bit on the cooler side, you can bring so much more along with you. And with enough ice, it really lasts quite a while. So, what are we going to fill our cooler with? I'd love to start by asking what some of the things are that you have found to be good fillers for your road trip cooler. Go ahead and drop those in the chat. We all want to know what has worked well for you. Some of our favorite things, in my mind, a cooler is like just a mobile salad bar. So think about things like leafy greens, chopped veggies, your dressings, maybe a pre-prepared salad like a pasta, a potato, or grain salad, or even a bean salad. We were just talking about beans. Any way that we can dress those up, make them really easy to eat on the go, is going to be really handy. I'm seeing some of these same things in the chat already. Jill with her baby carrots and hummus, great ideas. Oh, Phyllis, your air fried tofu. That is one of my favorite ones to bring along as well. Yeah, water, Cheryl, of course, always great to have extra water along the way. Fruits, veggies, mini carrots from iPhone. But in addition to being its own salad bar, it can also be its own kind of, veggie-friendly deli. Think the hummus that we already heard about, chickpea salad that can be put onto a sandwich, roasted vegetables, veggie burgers, condiments. All of these things are really great cold and thrown on two pieces of bread. They can be, or in a tortilla. These are really great on-the-go options for your meal. Sort of think in terms of some staple items that you might want to bring as well. These don't always necessarily need to be refrigerated, but just think about some of the meals that you might want. For breakfast, some oatmeal, fruit, bread or applesauce, even like a shelf-stable non-dairy milk. And then for lunch and dinner, having some foods like sweet potatoes, tortillas, grains, pasta, and beans just give you a lot of flexibility. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can utilize these for dinners on the go. This might kind of feel like you're just taking along a lot of groceries. But again, these are kind of like the foundations. It's helpful to think of these as the foundations of meals that you might either build or add to later. Just as a quick reminder, Em did mention that air travel is now a way that many of us get around, and that any non-liquid items can go through airport security. So canned beans, I think that's probably counted as liquid, but a sweet potato, you might get some funny looks if you're seen just walking around with one, but those should be allowed to go through most airport security. All right, so we've got our staples, we've got our cooler. Let's talk about some of the tools that are helpful. And first on our list is microwaves. So what I kind of like to do here is, especially for road trips, tell people to think like a truck driver. Now, truck drivers drive hundreds and hundreds of miles. They know ways to feed themselves while on the road without access to a full kitchen. I haven't talked to many truck drivers to know what their diets tend to look like. We want to be thinking of ourselves as the healthiest truck driver on the road. So we can achieve that goal with some really basic ingredients, kind of like we're seeing here. So with just some rice, beans, and salsa, maybe also some corn, you can easily throw those together, microwave it, and at a truck stop, and we'll talk about where you can find microwaves in a second. And there's an instant burrito bowl ready to go. The salsa is giving a lot of flavor. Of course, you're getting your black beans and a healthy sort of pre-cooked rice. It's just kind of the perfect meal. So where to find these microwaves? Some gas stations, especially ones that are frequented by truckers regularly or truck drivers, as well as most hotels, will allow or do have some sort of microwave access. So oftentimes hotels will have microwaves in the rooms. If yours does not, you might want to ask about just some communal access microwaves. Oftentimes, it's almost I think I have yet to go to a hotel that does not have some sort of microwave available to be used. So let's move on from talking about meals to still talking about meals. But if something like a burrito bowl sounded still just a little too complicated, it's three or four ingredients, you want to go even simpler. That is totally okay. In that case, there are a lot of products that you can buy that only require either heating up in a microwave or adding some hot water. So these are usually dehydrated soups or maybe some oatmeal. They're individually packaged, and oftentimes can be cooked with that hot water in the package that they come in. So in the case of this McDougall split pea soup, for example, you would just peel off the top, add in some hot water, and you might need to wait a few minutes, but these are pretty much ready to go. So we talked about microwaves. Hot water, it's kind of an ingredient, but it's also kind of a tool. Whatever machine it was that heated up the water is a really handy tool. And you can find these also very commonly at gas stations, as well as coffee shops. Many airports will have hot water. And for any train enthusiasts, Amtrak, there's usually many trains will have a cafe car that you can hike over to if you're not already in it and ask for some hot water, maybe even to go and bring it back to your seat. So these are great bases and oftentimes pretty complete meals in and of themselves. But this is where having a little, either a cooler or maybe a small refrigerated or sort of insulated lunchbox goes a long ways. Bring along some apples or carrots or any other fruit or vegetable that you feel like might be beneficial to add to those soups. Of course, carrots and apples are great on their own, but I could see these being really delicious, diced up, carrots being really delicious, diced up and tossed in a soup, just building out the volume and nutritional profile of that food even more. So we've talked a lot about meals. Let's get in a little bit to some snack ideas. So hopefully you've got a good cooler strategy devised, but it can be helpful to know where and what you can buy along the way at these gas stations, sort of roadside pit stops. So maybe let me know, what are some of the things that you have found either at a gas station, a mini mart, or a general store that has been a great travel food? Have you found any bean products, or more likely some fruit or vegetables? Go ahead and drop some of those things that you have found to work well for you in the chat. I see Jill coming out of the gate hot with chopped fruit. That's also first on our list. So yes, Jill Marcus mentioning bananas. Fruit, especially apples and bananas, and sometimes oranges, as well as chopped fruit in these little plastic cups, are kind of a mainstay now of a lot of these roadside stops. So if you are on the interstate and pull over at any one of these sort of en route gas station fuel up spots, you should pretty easily be able to find some pretty good fruit offerings. There's also some slightly more processed fruit type foods as well. So think things like banana chips. Check those labels to make sure they're low in fat, but plenty of banana chips are. Or how about some of these applesauce packets? Again, individually wrapped, kind of in a squeeze bottle, so you don't even need a spoon to eat them. You just squeeze it right into your mouth. Even I'm not sure if, depending on the state, it might be. I'm not sure if it's allowed while driving, but definitely a great food that's has very little mess potential. All right, I'm seeing in the chat some more people jumping in. Wawa subs with whole wheat rolls. Awesome that they've got a whole wheat option. Topped with a boatload of veggies. Sounds delicious. Um, we've got someone who's binged on some pretzels and vegan popcorn at gas station. Yeah, on some of those long car rides, those sound like they would be great ways to fuel up. Um, oh, and we've actually got Philip, who's a former trucker and current delivery driver. Philip, we're appreciative that you're here with your perspective. Fruits and veggies, best for traveling. They tend to give you more energy and hydrate you better than cooked foods. That is a really great point. These fresh fruits and vegetables oftentimes have a great amount of water content. So rather than juggling snacks, especially dried snacks and a water bottle, getting it all in one is a really handy thing to do. And of course, very healthy. So thanks, Philip, for that insight. You can often find these veggie trays, hummus and veggie trays, kind of prepped and ready to go. Pretzels, as a few people have mentioned. And I don't know if anyone knew this. Pickles come in a bag now, maybe even the single serve bags. So Oh Snap is just one brand that we came across that sells these little snackable, crunchy dilly pickles, which sound really, really delicious and kind of a fun change of flavor too. That if you like that sort of vinegar flavor. And also beans, canned beans, pre-cut, pre-cooked, green beans. Oftentimes these cans are available at some of these gas station general store type places. And then finally, who doesn't love a good bagel? So keep your suggestions coming of other things that you have found to be helpful at gas stations. I see really quickly in the chat, Elizabeth asking about pretzels, because I know those have come up a few times, and wondering if they're really healthy. Well, as we've talked about mostly in our label reading classes and alluded to in many others, foods like pretzels or bagels that are primarily made from wheat are oftentimes don't require any fat really added to them. So if you flip them over, you'll find that they are low in fat. They don't include animal products. And so that really sets them up to be included in a diet that's meant to reverse type 2 diabetes. So I wouldn't recommend making your entire diet a pretzel-based diet, but as a snack, they are fantastic. They are oftentimes a great delivery system for hummus, especially if you pair that with some other vegetables like celery and carrots, like we see in this graphic. So they might be high in carbs, but they are a type of carb that your body is working towards being able to handle better. So I would say, yes, pretzels, they can definitely be healthy. If you are just starting this journey and finding that pretzels really make your blood sugars rise pretty dramatically and not come down for a while afterwards, that might be something that you personally then say, okay, I'm not going to have as many pretzels at the moment. We'll come back to those after this diet has given my muscle and liver cells some time to catch up. So there's a little bit of room for individual nuance, but overall, being a low-fat vegan food, pretzels and bagels, foods of that sort are great choices. All right, so I want to move on to maybe the most revered American tradition of all, the complimentary hotel breakfast. Sometimes these can be very elaborate with all sorts of different options. Other times, hotels are just going through the motions, and those are sometimes the more challenging ones to find healthy foods at. So let's start with the cereal section. In these funny little containers that disperse little, usually the most crumbly portions of the cereal, I find, there can honestly be some pretty good finds. So things like cornflakes or Raisin Bran are oftentimes vegan and low fat, meaning they are a perfectly fine option to include as part of your breakfast. So you might not find nutrition information on them. If you have access to a phone and are able to Google nutrition information for any one of the options they have, that can be a great way to find out if the particular cereal is a low-fat vegan option. A possibly more reliable option right next to the cereal, the cold cereal, is the hot cereal or the oatmeal. Usually it's just oats and water, and then there are options of toppings. We like the dried fruit. We would recommend staying away from the nuts and seeds because of their high fat content. Breads and bagels can be a great option as well. I find that the cinnamon raisin swirl bread is sometimes just really delicious all on its own. Same goes for a cinnamon raisin bagel. And maybe our favorite section is the fruit section. So fruit can be eaten on its own. Maybe you add it to some of the oatmeal you got earlier in the buffet line. It's a fantastic stop to make along your free breakfast journey. Some of the things that you might not immediately see, but are worth asking a little bit more about, is the non-dairy milk options. So even if a restaurant or a hotel doesn't have something like almond or soy milk displayed, they might have it in the back reserved for people who have dietary restrictions, such as allergies, or someone like yourself who is trying to avoid animal products. So it's always worth asking a hotel attendant saying, "Hey, do you have any non-dairy milks that I could have access to?" And the answer will be, if they have it, will be yes, or very well should be. And then this is a hack that I really like to do myself, and that's bringing along some powdered peanut butter. So PB2 and PB Fit are two different brands. There are a couple others out there, but they are peanut butter without the fat. So it's powdered. You just mix in a little bit of water and you're good to go. This is a really lightweight and pretty easy thing to put in a small Tupperware container and take along with you. Okay, I want to hit on fast food options before we get too deep into things. So Taco Bell, Papa John's, Panera, Jimmy John's, Subway, others as well, they might feel a little off limits on a diet like this. But as we discussed, I believe in last week's class, there are many options at a lot of them, if you know what to look for and how to ask. So we have a dining out guide that we'll post in the chat that has tips and suggestions for ordering at all of these different locations. I would encourage you to check that out. All right, so we've talked about a lot of suggestions of meals and snack ideas. I think I've probably been seeing a lot of these already. But if you haven't shared any of your favorite snacks that you like to pack when traveling, do go ahead and put those in the chat. Um, I'm seeing some interesting chatter going on. People talking about eating a mustard packet, maybe just for some of that flavor. That sounds like a familiar experience. Um, yes, Sally mentions that hotel breakfasts, lot of carbs. That's true. So this is where a little bit of preparation ahead of time might be able to help round out the diversity of foods you're eating at a hotel breakfast if you don't suspect it'll have all of the foods that you're looking for. So keep those suggestions and reports of favorite snacks coming, or any other questions that you have. We've got a few suggestions of our own. And I think when it comes to snacks in particular, we really love them because they can help reduce the amount of temptation you feel when encountering unhealthy food at other points in your day. So the more hungry you are, the more likely you are to that inviting drive-through, or if you're in a restaurant, to choose the higher fat option. Having some snacks throughout the day to keep your hunger levels at bay will really help when you're outside of your normal home environment. So we've got some suggestions here, some low-fat chickpeas, of course, some of our like pretzels and rice cakes. Also, veggie trays. So hummus with carrots or celery, maybe pita chips can be a really fantastic way to fight the hunger. Fruit, of course, is great too. We've talked about this, apples, bananas, oranges, maybe even a little bit more processed, like an applesauce. Great options as well. And maybe the most packable and handy fruit-based snack of all is the That's It brand fruit bars. These are just, anywhere from 1 to 3 fruit purees that have been dried slightly and pressed into a bar. Very low in fat, very friendly for this kind of diet, and very easy to just put a few in your purse, in your suitcase, in your pocket even, and have them for whenever you need them. If you're looking for some homemade options, we've got links to a chickpea recipe, some very quick oatmeal banana bites. And if you're looking for leafy greens in a way that doesn't require as much refrigeration, kale chips can be a great way to dehydrate some kale leaves, season them deliciously, and have them ready to go in a travel situation. And we've got a few more recipes coming at the end, as we usually do, but I wanted to share this one for our speedy banana oatmeal cookies. Maybe one of the simplest recipes known to mankind. 3 ripe bananas and 2 cups of old-fashioned oats. You just mash up those bananas, maybe add in some cinnamon or vanilla, dried fruit if you have it, but then you just bake that for 15 or so minutes, and you've got these delicious little oatmeal cookie bites ready to go. Now, I know a lot of people were reporting a lot of snow on the ground in their area, so I don't know if anyone is immediately packing their car to go camping, but because it is such a great way to get outside, plenty of people live in warmer climates, we just like to share that if you are going camping, it's always helpful to plan ahead, but especially if you are looking to stay on track with this diet. So think about the meals that are coming. Find the necessary ingredients and equipment to cook them without having to rely too much on added fats. And we also, as a kind of specific tip to this program, like to say, start off strong. Pack some sort of home-cooked meal that you can either eat cold or reheat easily when you get to your campsite so that you're not starting off your trip hungry. So if you're looking for easy assembly options, veggie burgers, my personal favorite of tofu and vegetable skewers, and then veggies wrapped in foil or even corn on the cob are some really awesome ways to go. So I might call on Em to recap the chat, see if there are any questions that have come up. We'd love to answer those before entering into the closing slides for the day. Oh, and Em, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So thank you so much, Noah. I was seeing so many great things in the chat, which I'm sure you were as well. Just so many great snack ideas. But I did also appreciate the reminder from Dee. She said, if you're packing cans with you on your travels, make sure you bring. That's a great tip. Thank you. And I really, I like Teresa's tip. She said, buy a collapsible microwave steamer. That could be useful for when traveling. Jill Marcus said she really enjoys baking sweet potatoes and putting cinnamon on them. That sounds amazing. And then Annie mentioned dried sweet potatoes. I know I've seen those at a few stores, including Costco and maybe elsewhere. So those are a nice option to keep getting in those nice, really filling, starchy veggies while you're traveling. I've seen roasted chickpeas come up a lot, edamame, mandarin oranges. So all these amazing foods from the Power Plate. It's great seeing that you can enjoy those even when you're traveling. So let me see if we had any questions. I know we had a lot of great comments. We did have, let's see, a concern about the carbohydrates in some of these foods like pretzels and bagels. So just as Noah had shared in the beginning, and Anna also had a great response in the chat, and we'll be sending it afterward. But just remember that it's normal for our blood sugar to rise after eating a carbohydrate-rich food. And as time progresses, when we're eating a low-fat vegan diet, our body's going to respond a lot more quickly to that, the sugar in the carbohydrates in these foods. So we're going to be able to prevent that buildup of fat inside of the cell that happens when we eat a lot of those higher fat foods. So when we're eating things like bagels and pretzels and other healthy carbohydrates that don't have all that fat, then our body can use insulin how it should, and our blood sugar will come down, shortly after meals. So we did provide a link to some videos just as a refresher if anyone needs those, because it can be tricky. We hear so much that, oh, carbohydrates are not good for me or something like that. So just keep in mind that keeping it low fat is going to be really helpful, as many of you are doing already. So let's see if anything else we have coming in. I did see one other thing from Marcia and Lee I wanted to point out. They suggested pita bread. I think that's a great idea. It's very packable. So, stuffing pita or a tortilla, or, if bread's a little too bulky, sometimes carrying a loaf of bread. So the pita bread's a really nice option. So thank you for sharing that, Marcia and Lee. And all right, we have a question from Patrick. I know we have several health experts with us here. He's asking, what spike after meals starts to be a concern? I don't know if anyone wants to take that one, or
I can jump in real quick, but I learned this from Annie, who's right here. Usually we're looking at like 50 to 60 points. So you want to check before you eat. So you have your baseline, and then again, like 1 to 2 hours afterwards. But it'll be different for everyone. So Annie, I don't know if you have any other recommendations.
Yeah, it is definitely custom from person to person. And one interesting piece, I'm sure a lot of you are monitoring your blood sugars, and you can start to feel if your blood sugars have jumped up significantly after a given meal. So really be in tune to how you're feeling after meals, and if you're feeling, sluggish, a little bit of blurry vision, that's usually a red flag that the blood sugar has risen too quickly or too significantly. And then you can check in and see, ooh, what is that threshold for me? Maybe, for you, it's 60 points. For somebody else, it's 40 points. But that's where, working with a dietitian is helpful, so we can create a custom plan for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna and Annie. That's great to know. And hopefully, Patrick, that helped you and others. I know that's a very common question that comes up. So great question. So we'll just round it out with our recipes. And speaking of legumes and other high fiber foods, we have a very easy and tasty roasted edamame. And then that could be something you use in a homemade trail mix. So just a couple of ingredients, maybe it's air pop popcorn or a popped butter-free popcorn, and then adding some sort of other crunch like a whole grain cereal like Chex or Cheerios or shredded wheat, or mini pretzels. And then you get your beans in with either roasted chickpeas or edamame. And then to give a little bit of sweet, a freeze-dried berry is a great option. I know I've seen those at Aldi and other stores, or unsweetened dried fruit like raisins or cranberries or mangoes. So it could be lots of flavor and a really nice snack to pack along with you. And then we found that, making burgers is a really nice idea. These are bean and veggie burgers. So another way to get in beans while you're traveling. They freeze really well. You don't need a food processor. You're just mashing things together and forming them into patties, and they are delicious. And then our reminders, as always, take a B12 supplement if you are following a plant-based diet or over the age of 50. And if you take medications for diabetes or blood pressure, continue on those and continue to check your blood sugar and blood pressure regularly, and always work with your physician before making any medication changes. And our video resource for the week is Problem Solving and Common Questions. This will help address any additional concerns or questions folks have. And then our book recommendation, Your Body in Balance by Dr. Neil Bernard. And then we have the Game Changers. So for anyone who doubts that this could be an ideal way of eating for athletics, definitely check out the Game Changers if you haven't already. It's a great one. And then our goal or challenge for the week is to make a travel-friendly recipe. Even if you're snowed in, it could be a great, even a better opportunity to try out some recipes that you think would be nice for traveling. So hopefully you got some ideas from today's, from the chat, from what we talked about, and just your own ideas. And then we really look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 12 Eastern Time. Our topic is succeeding in social situations, and we'll have our special guest, Brittany Giroudi. So we are very excited to have her here joining us. So thank you all for attending. We hope you had a very enjoyable experience, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.